The live is working. All right, the live is working. All right, there we go. So we have 42 people so far joined in. Right, so all the attendees will join in, and once it gets to about, 60, we'll begin. All right. All right, so 47 people. All right, so we'll be starting shortly. We're just waiting on, I guess, a couple more people, and then I believe we can start. All right, so we're just waiting to pass through my people, and we can begin. Right, Dr. Vanderhyden has joined again. Hopefully it works this time. I just left again. So she keeps getting kicked out of the webinar. Not too sure how to fix that. All right, I think we're ready to begin. All right, so welcome all attendees. We're just having trouble with one of our panelists, Dr. Vanderhyden. She'll figure it out sometime soon, but in the meantime, I feel that we can get started so we don't waste any more time. My name is Jaspreet Gill. I am the chairperson and co-founder of YHSA. We are so extremely thankful and grateful to have all of you here today and join us and ready to learn a little bit from our panelists. So, Shana, can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so this is our event outline. We will begin with our panelist introductions. Our panelists will say a few words about themselves. Then we will go into prompt-based discussions. We just have a couple questions that we've compiled that were the most popular when you guys registered with our Google form. And then we will have a short Q&A. The Q&A will actually be ongoing throughout the entire webinar. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat box, and one of our panelists can probably get to you while they're not actively participating within the chat. We're going to try to have a little bit of time at the very end for you to ask a couple more questions. But if we don't, go for it. You guys can just put the questions in the chat box and just try not to be too redundant. And yeah, so let's go into it. Next slide, please. All right. So our panelist introduction. So Dr. Vanderhyden, can you go back? So Dr. Vanderhyden is unfortunately not here with us right now. She's having a couple of technical difficulties. We're hoping she can join in sometime soon, but I'm sure she'll give an introduction once she is able to join. Alisha and Natasha, can you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, everyone. My name's Natasha. My name is Alisha, and we are twin sisters. As you can tell, you're not seeing double. We're currently in our first year at Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and the curriculum is very unique because we just spent a year at Harvard Medical School. We went to Cornell University for undergrad, and we majored in human biology, health, and society. So I guess I can give a quick introduction to what we did at Cornell University. So at Cornell, both Natasha and I, we initiated TEDx-style talks for undergraduate researchers. That was called CURBX, which stands for the Cornell Undergraduate Research Board. And we were also teaching assistants for multiple entrepreneurship classes, and we conducted research in various labs. In our spare time, we enjoy hiking, writing. Some of our work has been featured in the Harvard Crimson, Harvard Gazette, as well as the American Student Dental Association's magazine called Contour. And we love volunteering as well. So I know in Ontario high schools, the minimum hours is 40 hours to graduate, and we went just a bit above that, and we ended up doing 2,000 hours. So we love volunteering. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. 2,000 plus hours. Wow, that's amazing. Kerry, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. So first of all, I'm super excited to be talking at this webinar. Thank you, YHSA. So my name is Kerry Yang, and I'm a grade 11 high school student in Sudbury, Ontario, which is a small town about 4 hours north of Toronto. And I'm also a student researcher at Laurentian University. So the last project I did was on the effects of dandelion root extracts on heavy metal-induced antibiotic resistance. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. And with the project, I took it to some science fairs as well, including the Canada-wide science fair. And I've also talked with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about my research. So I'm really passionate about research and science. I work at a science museum, and I also volunteer at a lot of different STEM organizations. And I'm super excited to be answering some of your questions today.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Can you have the next slide, please? Allie, can you please introduce yourself?
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Allie, and I'm about to enter my second year studying health sciences at McMaster University. I'm originally from Ottawa, but right now I'm currently in Montreal doing my first ever research internship at the IRCM, which has been really exciting. Got to learn a lot of new things, and it's been a great experience so far. So thank you so much for having me as a panelist, and I'm excited to answer all your questions.
Oops, I was on mute. Bhuvi, can you introduce yourself?
For sure. Hi guys, I'm Bhuvi, and I'm super excited to be here. I am a grade 10 student at a high school in California, a lot different from everyone else here. And I recently just finished conducting research on brain tumors, and I've been working with a doctor. And recently, last weekend, actually, I participated in a neuroscience competition where we proposed to treat Parkinson's disease with a new form of therapy called sound therapy. So that was actually really interesting. And I hope I get the opportunity to answer a lot of your questions today.
Thank you so much. So those are all our panelists. We're just waiting on Dr. Vanderhyden. As I've said before, she's having a few technical difficulties, so hopefully we get her on really soon. But I think we'll just go into our prompts right now. China, can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so our first prompt, this one was really popular. How do you approach asking a superior for a research or internship opportunity? What advice would you give to others? Should you follow up? How persistent should you be? Any of our panelists want to take that question?
I'll start off with this question because I actually started volunteering at a lab and do my own research. I started off just by cold emailing professors. This might be a little bit easier in bigger towns when you have more choices of universities, but in Sudbury, we don't really have a lot of schools, especially schools that have labs. So I reached out to some graduate students and also a few professors if I could help out in their labs. When you're cold emailing, they're pretty busy with their own stuff, and I wasn't too sure if they'd just let me go in and do my own research. So I was really happy to just help out with any experiments they had going on. So that's how I started. So I didn't really get a lot of responses, and you probably shouldn't expect too many because these people are really busy. But I actually started working with a graduate student who replied to my email and was happy to let me help out. And after a little bit, I brought up the topic of doing my own research, and she was totally cool with that. And so I started just doing it under her mentorship. And I think that was really just how my experience went, but I love to hear what other people did as well.
I can also add on to that. So I understand how intimidating and how overwhelming it could be to really go up to a professor or faculty, especially as a high school student or a first year. So I remember that I was really interested in nutrition. So I ended up taking a nutrition class, and that was how I kind of sought out this research opportunity. So the professor of the class had over 200 publications, and he's a huge name in the field. So my heart was racing. I was super scared. But I ended up actually waiting for the semester to go by. I wanted to get to know him more. So that would be one piece of advice I really have, where you don't need to rush on day one of your first year or in high school to really seek out that research opportunity. You can really take time to really get to know the professor and then research more about him and then him or her, and then you can definitely find a research position like that. And just to add on to that, definitely take classes you're interested in, and then you'll be able to find that network. And if the professor, for example, doesn't have enough spaces in his or her current lab, I'm sure that they have colleagues that they can refer you to. So definitely take advantage of talking to your teachers and talking to your professors. And also to stress, talk to your TAs as well. So I know once you get to college and university, there are teacher assistants, and teacher assistants are essentially third or fourth year students, or they can be pursuing a master's or PhD. And these students can really help you because they have a bit of insider knowledge, and they also know the professors really well. So that's a really good point of contact.
All right. Thank you so much. Allie, would you be able to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm actually, I go to school in Hamilton, but I knew that I wanted to come to Montreal for the summer to do research. And two of my friends go to McGill University here. So they're part of a club that connects students with professors that do research. And that's how they discovered the IRCM, which is the Clinical Research Institute that I work at. It's not really a lab from the university per se, but it's affiliated with them. So there's some professors that teach there who also work in the lab, and that's how I heard about it. And similar to Kerry, I just sent out cold emails. The professors and researchers are often really busy. So as she was saying, you might not get many responses right away, but you just need to remember that you only need one person to say yes to get your first opportunity, and then it gets way easier from there.
All right, amazing. Allie, I would just like to follow up on that question just because I'm a little curious. So you're a first year student, right?
Yes.
How do you feel that the professors that you reached out to, how do you feel that your experience played a role within that? Because you're a first year, right? So do you think they were very, did they really look into your experience working in the lab? Do you have that kind of experience, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, for sure. So this is my first ever research experience. A a lot of professors, they don't have the time or the resources available to take on additional students, but I found that the professors who did have that time or that extra space in the lab were really willing to listen to what I like, to see how interested I was, and to give opportunities like that. So I think there is like a little bit of luck that plays a factor onto like if the person that you're interested in working with has spaces. Yeah.
All right, amazing. Bhuvi, would you like to add to that, or would you like us to move on, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. Just one little thing I wanted to add on is that for one piece of advice that I would like to give is like definitely when you're reaching out to professors, cold emailing them, make sure that you are really expressing your interest for the field of research that they are doing, just because you want to help them, right? You want to be a part of their research. So you really have to show them that, yes, I am passionate about what you're doing, and only then will they see that you really will be a valuable asset to their work and to their research.
Thank you so much. I think we can move on to the next prompt, Shayana. Shayana, next slide. Oops, we went back a little bit. All right, so this is a very popular question that we got. What academic or non-academic documents and achievements did you supply alongside your application? And what email or application format did you use? And how effective do you think your initial outreach was? Anybody? How about we start off with Kerry? Maybe she can add to that.
Yeah, so like I said, I started off by cold emailing. Before I sent out emails, I sort of like drafted like the email on itself on Google Docs, and I looked it over, and then that was the same. It wasn't the same email, but it was sort of what I followed. And before I sent out the emails, I sort of stalked the people I was interested in researching with, so like some of the students and some of the professors on the university website, and that way you can personalize the email to their research. And I really just emphasize how willing I am to adapt and learn to the specific lab, and how I'm just really interested in helping out. And I think that really helped like the cold emailing process for me.
Just adding on to that, I think it's really important to realize that these professors have multiple students emailing a day. So don't be discouraged if they don't respond to your first email. And we always attached resumes as well as cover letters to all of our emails that we did send out. And it's just really important to don't really send out blanket emails, because they can definitely see through that you sent that out to like 10 of their colleagues as well, and it doesn't look that professional. So it's really important to really personalize all your emails to each individual professor. And I cannot stress, in your cover letter, be sure to talk about your interests, your goals, and how they align with the research lab's goals.
All right, just a quick follow-up. I know a lot of I think American institutes, I guess you put your GPA on your resume. Is that something that you guys did? Because I don't know how comfortable everybody is doing that. So if somebody could just touch on that.
That's a great question. So we actually both put our GPAs on your letter, but that being said, we just have to all remember that numbers aren't going to be everything. So even if you are not having like that 4.0, it's okay. You can still get into a research lab, and there's so many research labs available. When we all think of research, I used to think of research as being like some sort of wet lab. You need to be like working with mice, but that's not true at all. You can do research that you're passionate in. I did research like with senior citizens and a lot of gerontology focused research, as well as right now I'm working with COVID-19 patients at Mass General Hospital. So there's a wide range of research, and just because you're focusing in on one subject, you don't need to like stick to that subject for the rest of your life.
All right, that's wonderful. Anybody else want to add to that maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I can add on to that. So similar to Kerry, I also attached my resume, and I also added my high school transcript. I think that's totally optional if you want to include that or not. And then generally in my emails, I would have a short little 2 or 3 lines introducing myself, and then another 2 or 3 lines like talking about why I was interested in their research. So I would go and look at the professors and try to read some of their papers. It's okay if you don't understand anything, like not anything. It's okay if you don't understand everything, but just showing that you made the effort and like tried to see like the type of research that they're doing and including that into your email, I think is really important and shows how interested you are in that specific professor's research. And then I just ended off that email just restating that I was a first year with no experience, but I'm really curious and happy to learn more. And I also let them know that if they wanted to do an interview or like talk with me over Zoom, I'd be totally happy to do that as well. Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to move on to the next question, just so we have time to get through all of them. Shanna, can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So this is something that I am personally interested in. How do you even find out about the research institution? Like, do you use a specific website, a school program? And what resources do you recommend to use when seeking these research opportunities?
I guess I can start off here. So since I was just a ninth grader, I just started high school last year. And before that, like I wasn't gaining exposure into the world. Like I've recently started. And so one thing I tried to do throughout last year was I tried to build connections with upperclassmen who are also interested in the fields like of medicine. So I talked to them, I learned from them what courses they've been doing over the summer, what extra classes they've been taking. So I think that's one thing that really helped me. And also another thing is a lot of student developed organizations, for example, YHSA, for example, and a lot of others I've been trying to reach out, be a part of the organization just to gain a little bit more exposure and gain experience. Yeah.
So just add on to Bhuvi's response, I think it's really important to connect with these organizations. This summer, I've started volunteering at a lot of them, and along with the exposure that you get to the science part of it, you also get to meet a lot of different people interested in science. So for example, I started doing some life science review at Youth STEM Matters, which is a for youth by youth journal. And I'm able to connect with all these scientists from around the world who are interested in scientific fields. And while looking at their journals, I'm also working with other reviewers, and we're all interested in different parts of science, but everyone knows their own opportunities in the science field. Like, I'm connected to this organization, they're connected to this one, and we can share these opportunities with each other to develop each other's interests and our opportunities in general.
Oops, I was on mute. Alisha, do you maybe want to add to that?
Sure, yes. So I couldn't agree more with what has been said in regards to networking with upperclassmen. Upperclassmen, they typically know what professors are willing to have students in their lab, what professors students would want to have as their mentors. So definitely get to know students in grade 11, grade 12, see what research programs they did, and see the path that they took, as well as if it's something you're even interested in. And when you get to undergrad, one important thing is to look out for clubs. So one club, for example, that I found was the Cornell Undergraduate Research Board, as I mentioned this earlier. And this club, the main goal of the club is to essentially match undergraduate researchers who are looking for research opportunities with professors who have vacant spots in their lab. So try to find clubs such as CURB at your undergrad campus. Do you have anything?
Amazing. Allie, I am personally curious. How did you find the research opportunity that you have? I've watched your YouTube videos and see that you're researching in Montreal right now, which is super exciting. So how did you come about finding that opportunity?
Yeah, so I sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm living with two of my friends that go to McGill, and one of them is an executive member for a club that hosts like networking events where professors and students can meet. And I think she was actually the one who heard about IRCM and let me know. And then from there, I just researched on their website and took a look at the different research divisions to see what I was interested in, and then just sent cold emails from there. But I think another great way is a lot of universities have labs. So if you search up the faculty you're interested in, followed by like research, generally they'll have some pages with the main researchers at the universities there, and you can take a look to see what kind of research or what field that they are in.
All right, amazing. All right, I think we can move on to the next prompt. Shina, can we get next slide, please? how do you recommend for first year in high school students to go about seeking research and internship opportunities? And all right, so we've kind of touched on this question a little bit. So I was just wondering, what tasks are you appointed in labs as a first year in high school student, or even like a general undergrad student? Like, what kind of tasks do you guys do? Because I'm pretty sure for high school students and first year students, you don't have a lot of experience on your hands. So how do you go about, getting some tasks in the lab to do?
So this is a really great question. So this really depends on what lab you join. So a lot of labs might have first year students that join the lab really kind of do like the dirty work. So it's really important, even though it is dirty work, such as like cleaning up lab supplies and stuff. We've all been through it, and you will kind of climb up that totem pole. And just to give you an example and to give you some hope. So for example, when I joined a nutrition lab my first year at Cornell, the first thing I was doing was, it was all based on like nutrition, and like it was basically behavioral impacts on caloric intake. And we did a lot of stuff like giving out chocolates. So I was the one like cutting up the chocolates, cleaning up anything that spilled. And it was a lot of like boring work. But the main positive that came out of that was I got to network. So I got to network with the third and fourth year students whose experiment I was helping with. And then when I was a third year student, I ended up doing that whole process by myself, and I had a first year helping me. So it's kind of like a circle, and you really have to pay it forward, and you will get a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm. All right, Allie, do you maybe want to add on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I totally agree with what they mentioned. I think it totally does depend on what lab you're in. And if you can make it clear what your responsibilities are before going in or before making a commitment, I think that's something that'd be very helpful. So for example, right now, I mainly do some repetitive work. So it's like data collection and data analyses. I do a lot of sectioning and then immunofluorescence. But the good thing about this is my supervisor is about to finish one of his papers. So as long as I keep like collecting the data and we are able to find trends, he said that I could get my name on the paper. So that's like one really interesting thing. And also there's always different experiments running in the lab. So I'll get to see them or even get to try out some new techniques, even though I might not be as good. It does give you like some really good exposure. And yeah, I would just say when you're talking with the lab director or whoever is going to be training you, just to make those expectations clear before you start. That way you sort of know what you're getting yourself into. And yeah, and you can decide for yourself if it will be worth your time or not.
Kerry, do you maybe want to add to that?
Yeah, so like some of you guys previously said, it's a lot of the dirty work for me. So I worked in like a biochem lab, and I was getting the ice. I was doing like data entry. It was a lot of voice stuff, but I also got to piggyback off of what the graduate student was doing. So she'd explain to me like what she was doing, what experiment this was going to show, what experiment and like what results were. She would explain to me like everything that was going on. And that's really important, just get exposure, like, oh, how does this machine work? What does it do? And different like lab safety protocols. So I think that was really important. But yeah, it was pretty boring. There's a lot of just dirty work.
All right. I also have just a follow-up question on that. How proficient do you have to be within data entry within like Microsoft Excel or those data entry softwares, I guess? How proficient do you have to be within that to work in a lab? Does anybody want to add to that? I just had I was just interested in knowing that. Allie, maybe you can add to that because you mentioned some data entry work that you do.
Yeah, so I think I just have like basic knowledge. I know how to use Excel, but I don't know how to use any like the fancy formulas or visualizations. I think when people are taking in new students, especially those without any experience, they know that they will have to be training them throughout the way, and they'll expect that. So I think, yeah, if you have some experience, that's great, but I basically just have only the basic knowledge, and I get along pretty fine.
All right.
Just to quickly echo what Allie mentioned, when I joined the Baby Lab, which is the behavioral analysis of beginning years, I had to do a lot of video, transcribing a lot of videos using ELAN software. And I had no clue what ELAN even was before I joined the lab, but the lab was pretty open into teaching me and stuff. But just be as open with the professor as possible and let them know that you're not proficient in the software, and they'll be happy to like teach you and show you everything.
All right, amazing. I think we can move on to the next question, I believe. Shina, can we get next slide? All right, perfect. How do you excel in interviews? This is something that I am personally really interested in. I get a lot of anxiety when, just having an interview, be it even on the phone or like Zoom or whatever it is. So how do you excel within that?
Okay, I guess I can talk about this one. So one of my main things that I try to do is learn about the organization and the position that I am interviewing for. I go on their website, I see everything they have done. I read about the position that I want just to make sure that when I do answer questions about, why I'm interested in the position or what really appeals to me about the organization, I have background knowledge and I know what I'm talking about. And another thing is that always show what you're like always show what you're passionate about. Like if pretend I'm applying for a research assistant or something like that. So I have to show them that yes, I do have all of this experience, and which is why I would be a valuable addition to your team, just showing that you are truly passionate about what you're applying for and you are truly interested in succeeding. That's really going to, make a good impression on the person interviewing you.
All right.
Yeah, so I agree with everything Bhuvi said. I think one thing interviewers are always looking for is for you to be yourself and not be the person that you think the interviewer is looking for. I think normally they can see through that. So like before you do an interview, normally I go on like a website and I'll go like comment interview questions and I'll think of answers for each of them. But when I'm thinking of them, I'm not just trying to be cliche like, oh, what's your biggest weakness? And then the answer is not going to be like, I'm too detail oriented or something that like they hear a lot. Because if you're honest, I think they can really tell that you're being authentic, and that's something they want to look for. Someone who's genuine and who's honest about like who they are, and that's always an asset to a team when you're someone like that.
All right, that was amazing because those cliches, like if you like, so before an interview, what I like to do, even like for those executive positions or whatever, I like to like go online, search up some common interview questions and some common answers.
Sure.
And I often see like, oh, I'm too detail oriented, or I just take on a lot of work, and I'm like, do I really want to say that? Or like, does it sound kind of, I don't know, it sounds kind of weird. So it's great that you kind of clarified that for us. Allie, do you maybe want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Bhuvi and Kerry touched on it pretty well. That's pretty much it. I would also say like come prepared to answer some generic questions like, oh, tell me about yourself, or what are your plans after you finish undergrad, or like, why are you interested in the research in my lab? And yeah, just having a little bit of an idea of what you're going to say for those questions can be really helpful instead of making you think of everything on the spot. But other than that, I would say that's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right, I think we can move on to the next question. Shina, can we get the next slide, please? So as the academic community continues to become more competitive, how can one make themselves stand out from the rest when seeking internship and research opportunities? Alisha, do you maybe want to take that?
Sure, yes. Just to quickly add on something in regards to interviews, I think it's really important to send a follow-up email. Be sure to thank the interviewer for their time. And do you want to add anything else about interviews? Sure, just a quick thing. I think it's really important that oftentimes when we go to interviews, we're all prepared for what they're going to ask us, but it's really important that you actually have additional follow-up questions for the interviewer. This really shows that you really looked into their own research, you looked into their lab, you understand what you're getting yourself into. So it's really important to also write out a few questions for the interviewer. And these shouldn't be easy questions that you could just Google and find the answer to. They should actually be in-depth questions on one of their research articles or papers.
All right. So I just wanted to follow up on that. I've looked into a lot of like research professors' research articles, and I see that oftentimes they're really hard to understand. So how do you go about that? Like, what if they ask you a question on like kind of their research article or whatsoever, and you kind of didn't understand? So how do you go about answering those kinds of questions?
So that's a great question. And at the end of the day, we are all human. I've read through like many papers before, and they're super complicated. And if I were to tell the professor, and I read the abstract, that's like the number one thing you should always do, read the abstracts of all of the PI's papers that you're going to go interview with. But if you don't understand it, it's okay. They're not expecting you to know what every single thing in like biochem or molecular biology is at this stage. So I think it's really important to do your best in understanding it. But if you don't understand, it's okay to ask questions. And I think it's so much better because it says a lot more character about you as a person, like totally honest and reliable. And those are the qualities that they also look for in a lab, in a research position. So I think the best thing would be to be honest about it.
All right. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I believe, do we have another question, Shayana, after this one? I think we did. Can we just go to, oh yes. This question, I already read it out loud, so maybe someone can answer this one. How about Allie?
Yeah, for sure. So I think like the biggest thing would just be to reach out, because I know a lot of people are scared or just like don't know how to get started. But I think the first step is really just reaching out to the prof that you're interested in. And as long as you like demonstrate your interest for their research as and like tailor sort of like the email, that introduction that we talked about earlier, I think that's like a great start. Yeah, a lot of professors, especially if it's your first position, aren't really looking for you to have like a ton of experience already. And as long as you're able to show that you're dedicated, you're hardworking, and you want to learn more, they're generally very happy to take you on.
Amazing. Bhuvi, maybe you could touch on this a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like I know Ali mentioned this, but like this is one main thing is that whenever you're sending in resumes or emailing professors, just make sure to tailor the email or your resume based on the position that you are sending in your resume for. That really shows how interested you are in that specific for that specific position. And like how can you make yourself stand out? I guess my main thing is just be passionate about what you're doing. And I know that's so cliche, just like be passionate, but really showing the people that you are interested and you are willing to put in the time and dedication to improve on yourself and learn more speaks a lot and shows the person that you are, willing to be dedicated. And yeah.
All right, amazing. So I just wanted to follow up on that a little bit. You said to tailor each email to like each research professor. I know that's really important. So how do you go about mass emailing? Because I know a lot of students do that, but like, how do you go about that when you have to like go back and tailor it? Do you recommend copy pasting just like a generic email, or do you like recommend like actually mentioning their research in each and every single lab? Each and every single email, because I know that can get very tiresome, but maybe Ali can touch on that.
Yeah, so I had like a simple email template that I mentioned earlier, but I did tailor every single email. It was generally 3 paragraphs, so the introduction and conclusion, but that middle part I would change to every single prof. And I also kept a spreadsheet of the professors that I emailed, like who I emailed and when I emailed. So that way I knew like after 3 or 4 days, if I wanted to follow up with them, to send another email afterwards. And that just helped me like stay organized and make sure I wasn't like sending the email to the same person twice or like, yeah, stuff like that.
That's amazing. The spreadsheet idea, I definitely will consider that, doing that. But in terms of mass emailing, how many like professors did you email before you got your first research or internship opportunity? If you could just give like a rough estimate, maybe like a number.
Yeah, so I would say I emailed around 40 in total over the course of a month. So I didn't do them all at one time because you have to tailor every single email. And out of those, I would say like a quarter of the people responded to me, but a lot of people weren't looking for first years or didn't have space in the summer or were only looking to take on like graduate students. So like, yeah, the response rate was already low. And then the rate for people who were actually willing to like sit down for an interview was even lower. And then I talked to 3 profs over Skype, and 2 of them ended up giving me like a position for the summer. And I decided to go with the one who seemed like they were more organized, had a more clear idea of what they wanted me to do. And that's where I'm working right now.
All right, that's amazing. I had a question, but I think I forgot. Wait, I remember. So a lot of people, I know I've seen a lot of like research professors on like LinkedIn and whatnot, if you have a LinkedIn account. So do you recommend reaching out to research professors that way, or is that just weird and awkward?
I don't know like about any of the other panelists here, but personally, I haven't reached out over LinkedIn before. I do have a LinkedIn, but normally I just stick with emailing. And I also email from my school account, like my McMaster account, so they know it isn't like spam. Yeah, but if anyone has experience with LinkedIn and wants to hop in.
I haven't contacted any professors or like for research opportunities over LinkedIn. I think it would be more professional to email, but I haven't really done it before, so someone else can hop in there. But another thing that's really useful for LinkedIn is when you're connecting with other people, like for example, if you're looking for other students who are also interested in STEM, you can scroll through their experiences. And often they're involved in all these like organizations or maybe like science competitions that you could also involve yourself in. So it's always important to like look out for opportunities that way, and also just through your feed as well.
All right. So I just had a question for Alisha and Natasha. How integral do you think your research experience was within your dental school applications? Like, do you think it played a big role in getting into Harvard? That's a great accomplishment that you guys have. So I was thinking maybe you could just touch on that a little bit.
Sure. So I can get us started on that. Essentially, when you are applying to medical or dental school, research is definitely a component in the application. But that being said, we have classmates at Harvard Medical School who have never done any lab research, and same in the dental school. So you don't need to do like you should not only focus on research as being like your ticket into any medical or dental school. So I think it's really important that you are going to be looked at very holistically, and research is definitely one component, but volunteering is another one. Your grades are another one. The MCAT or the DAT will definitely be another. Yes, shadowing. So there's a whole component that that's really important. In a lot of interviews, research did come up, like, oh, tell me about your research. And it only comes up if you do have extensive research listed on your application. But other than that, it is something they look for, but you don't need to be a published author and have like X amount of publications. When I applied to dental school, I had no publications. I currently still have no research publications. You don't need to have research publications to get into medical or dental school. And many of our classmates are in the same boat as us. So yeah, so I think just to add on to that, that's a great point. I know we emphasize research a lot, but it's so important that a lot of even our colleagues and the future physicians, none of them have really done research. And it is a mandatory component at Harvard that you need to graduate medical and dental school by presenting a research poster. So they will train us, and we're currently now going through it. And I'm doing a project right now at MGH, and that paper's like in the process of being reviewed by a manuscript. So it really depends, but you don't need it for research. So if you're listening right now and you don't like research, don't worry. You don't need to be researching you don't need to solve cancer. Like, don't worry. Don't get into medical or dental school without doing research. I think another thing is also focus on internships as well. So if you're interested in startups or any entrepreneurship or like any other field, definitely pursue those interests as well, because you can do both.
All right, amazing. I just had another question. So once you get a research opportunity, I've heard that like once you land your first one, it's really easy to like land several other, right? So how do you go about like jumping in from one type of research to another? Like, do professors look at you like a specific type of way, or like does it benefit you, or is it kind of a disadvantage? Maybe Kerry or Natasha and Alisha could add to that.
I can get us started on this one. So I've done research from gerontology, as I mentioned. I was also in a nutrition lab, and right now I'm working on like COVID-19 and patients being non-intubated. So I've done a whole spectrum of stuff, and I don't really have like one specific topic of research that I'm like so in love with that I want to do that for the rest of my life kind of thing. So for me personally, I feel like every research opportunity still really helped, and it really developed my other skills. So whether it was learning how to use specific programs, or whether it was just learning how to lead a team, or whether it was learning how to get through the IRB process, which is the Institutional Review Board, I really think that every research opportunity led to another. So I don't think that professors look at it negatively as in like, why did you not just stick to gerontology research? They know that all of us we're all really young, we're all developing different qualities, and we all want to really experience and have a broad overview of different topics. So if anything, honestly, I'd actually recommend branching out to do many things, because when you're younger, we're lucky we all can really do that. And as you get older, you will find that one topic that you're super interested in and you really want to like just focus on that. I think just to add on to that, one thing is time commitment. So definitely do not spread yourself too thin, because it can be very overwhelming to commit to 2 labs. in my freshman year, spring semester, I joined a nutrition lab, the same one Natasha was in. And then junior year, I joined the baby lab. So it definitely was a big time commitment. Make sure at your interview and make sure you get the information of what the time commitment really is, because I remember at some point I had to move the number of credits of research I was taking from 3 credits to 2 credits, because it was over 20 hours a week for the baby lab. And it was a lot, especially with the nutrition lab and trying to run my own experiment in the nutrition lab. So definitely do not spread yourself too thin.
All right, amazing. Bhuvi, I just had a question for you. What was the difference that you saw within working with a physician? Because I know you mentioned you worked with a physician with research on brain tumors, which is amazing. And how was that experience different from working in a lab setting?
Oh, sorry. So I have just recently started my experience in research. So I have unfortunately not gotten to work in a lab yet. I'm still exploring opportunities, trying to find what I can do. But as of right now, I have not worked in a lab yet.
Oh, okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about your experience with working with a physician. How was that like?
What I really liked working with a physician, just because you kind of have that mentor, you need guidance on something. So you have someone guiding you through the especially for a beginner like me, because I just started out. And so you have someone kind of guiding you through the process and there to, help you with your every step. So I knew what I was doing. I wasn't too lost or too confused. And anytime I had a question, I could just reach out to him, clarify. So I think that was one of my major positive points, was that I had a guider. Okay. I had someone who was guiding me every step of the way and was just there to help me and continue my project.
Amazing. All right, so I believe that we have an open Q&A after this, if I'm not mistaken. Shanna, can we go to the next slide to see if there's anything there? Cheyenne.
No, that's about it.
All right, that's about it. So, I'm looking at our live stream, and a lot of individuals are asking about what are cold emails. So maybe one of you can expand on that, because I'm not too sure. I was assuming that people would know what those are, but that's okay. Maybe someone can expand on what cold emails are and give a rough outline of them. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, I can take that on. Basically, a cold email is just an email to a professor or someone like a grad student who you have no previous connection with. So they don't know you at all, and you're just reaching out to them for the first time through email.
All right, amazing. Is there a specific format, a generic format for cold emails that most individuals follow, or can it be anything? As long as
I think it depends on the individual. For people who attach a cover letter, the email might be a bit shorter, but personally I didn't write a cover letter, so I had more content in the actual email itself. So I think it really varies, yeah.
All right, amazing. So I know, Allie, you mentioned that you supplied your resume along with the cold email. So what kind of activities did you include in your resume? Because you had no previous research experience, right? So what kind of stuff did you include in your resume?
Well, I did include my other work and volunteer experiences that I had and extracurriculars. There's not much else that you can add on because I had no previous experience working in the lab. But if they can see that you were dedicated to another extracurricular beforehand, or there's many soft skills that are transferable that can be used in a lab setting. So yeah, I just sent out the email with the experiences that I did have before.
All right, amazing. So I think that's all the questions I personally had and all the questions that I saw that were popping up mainly on our live stream. But if any of our attendees have a question that they would like to verbally say, you can go for it. You can unmute yourself and put your camera on. You can ask the question. But panelists, you are free to answer the questions on our chat. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciated it. And we're so grateful to have you here and for you to speak on your experiences. Is there any last remarks that you would like to add for our future researchers, you can say?
I can get us started. I think it's really important that when you consider joining a lab, you should really find a lab that is going to offer a reciprocal relationship. So I understand that when you're applying, you're really looking to really get involved and learn from the PI, but you're also hoping that the PI will serve as a mentor for you. So I think keeping that in mind is really helpful, because you don't just want to be in a lab to learn stuff. You also are hoping to get some mentorship, and really they could possibly write that recommendation letter for you, which is what happened to me when I was applying to dental school. I reached out to my lab PI and he knew me outside of his lab as well. So I think that's also really important.
I think my biggest piece of advice is definitely put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to get rejected, because you'll send out a lot of emails, you won't hear back, but follow up and show you're interested and do what you're really passionate about. Don't compare yourself to other pre-meds. It's so hard when you hear some pre-meds are in like such thing, like you think they're in such like heavy wet-based labs, and you might know that you're a researcher, you're passionate, like, oh, it's not important then. But it's not like that. Really be passionate about what you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much. Allie, maybe you want to have final remarks?
Yeah, for sure. So earlier, my roommate just came up to talk to me and reminded me to mention that right now I'm working in a paid position. So certain labs might be more willing to take on students if you're open to applying to scholarships or certain grants like NSERC, so that they don't have to pay you straight out of like their pocket for their funding. So if you are looking to get paid, that's just something to keep in mind, just to mention that you're open to apply to like other forms of funding, like scholarships and stuff like that. And as for my final remark, I would just say, don't get discouraged, like keep reaching out to professors, and remember that you only need one person to say yes to get that first opportunity, and things will get easier from there. Yeah.
All right, Bhuvi.
Yeah, so in the end, again, like Kerry talked about this, Allie talked about this, Natasha and Alisha talked about this, but just do something that you are interested in, because when you apply to colleges, I'm not sure, when you apply to colleges or medical school, yes, they're going to see what extracurriculars you have, but they're also going to see if you really pursued something that you are passionate about and what you have. Like, okay, yeah, I have a list of 20 different things that I did, but then they are really going to see if I just did it for just putting it on my resume, or if I really, enjoyed working and really enjoyed doing the work that I did do. So just make sure you find things that you are really, really interested in and that you think you would be more interested to learn about and you think you can succeed in.
All right, amazing. How about Kerry?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that's been said right now. So for research opportunity, you just want to make sure that you are just keep reaching out to people, and just like staying hopeful for someone to reply to you, and also just staying passionate about what you want to pursue in research. And it's not the end of the world if you can't get into a lab with a professor. I mean, a lot of you guys are just high school students, and like no one's looking for publications before you go into university. But all you have to do is just stay being yourself and make sure you keep being passionate about science, and you'll end up where you need to be.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, our panelists, our attendees, for your time and tuning into our inaugural webinar. This is our first one. We're hoping to have many over the course of a year. However, if you have further questions, attendees, you can ask them on our chat. And I believe our panelists will be here for around 4-ish minutes, so you can go for it and ask questions. If not, we hope to see you at our future webinar. And yeah, all right.
I also just want to quickly add on that I noticed a lot of questions in the chat are like students interested in applying to US schools or Ivy Leagues. Alisha and I run an Instagram blog, and we mentor pre-med and pre-health students as well as pre-dental students. So feel free to check it out. I can put it in the group chat, but it's at Nanji Twins. So NANJI Twins. And we'd love to help you guys out, whether it's like through like mock interviews or personal statements or just general questions like what activities do I need to do in high school. We can definitely help them.
And thank you so much for having us, YHSA. This was an amazing webinar, and I'm sure it's very helpful to all the pre-med students. Thank you. We really enjoyed it.
All right, so if there's any way I know a lot of individuals here have a lot of questions. So if you are comfortable, panelists, if you're comfortable leaving down your social media or some way that they can contact you, if anybody needs some future guidance or whatsoever, feel free to do that in our chat area. And attendees, you can continue asking questions. I believe our panelists will be here for about 30-ish minutes now. But thank you for tuning in, guys. This has been a wonderful experience for me as well, a great learning experience. And thank you so much to all of you.
Oh, also, I just thought of it. I'm not sure how it works in Canada, but here in the US, there are things known as CNAs, which are certified nurse assistants, or MAs, which are medical assistants. And usually, I think you can get certified depending on your state by 16, 17, 18-ish. So, doing that, if you're interested in medicine, doing that, that really shows colleges or medical schools that you are interested, because you got certified and you have like a proper medical role, I guess, while you were still in high school. So if you guys want to know more about that, or definitely check it out, and any more questions, you can reach out to me. I think I've put my Instagram in the chat.
All right, amazing. Thank you for adding that, Bhuvi. Yeah, so our panelists, I believe they've left their contact information on our chat. So attendees, feel free to, I guess, ask any questions on the chat itself, or reach out to them at a later time if a question pops up. I'm sure that they'll be able to answer it once they get the time to do so. And once again, thank you for tuning in. And if you guys have any questions, you guys can just put them on the chat, and I'm sure one of our panelists will get to them. Thank you so much, guys. Also, attendees, I'm just going to do a shameless self-promo, but be sure to be following our Instagram. Our contact information is located down below on the presentation, so be sure to be following us if you enjoyed this for future webinars and whatnot. But yeah.
So Freda just asked a question, in the chat, and I'm just going to quickly say it out loud if that's easier than typing out a paragraph. But in regards to exploring internships and other interests, you guys mentioned entrepreneurships and small businesses. Do you guys have any advice on reaching out to small businesses in your areas? So my biggest piece of advice for that is that you can actually go through the academic route in order to find startup advisors. So for example, when we both interned at an oral healthcare startup in New York City, we actually reached out we took this class that had a lot of guest speakers. So that's one huge piece of advice I could give, is take classes, if you can really pick your classes right now, take classes with a lot of guest speakers, because oftentimes they will know someone that can get you connected somewhere in the field. So after we saw a guest speaker, we both went up to him, and he's a prosthodontist, and he was talking about this research opportunity and discovering this new periodontal therapy. So we actually ended up following up with him. We emailed him, and he said that hey, come to New York City, and I'm looking for some interns for this next upcoming summer. So that's how we found one of our internships, and he actually ended up writing both of our letters for Harvard Dental. So it's really important that you don't need to just find your PI to write a letter for you.
The thing is, a lot of students, medical and dental, there's so many of them that apply per year, and a lot of people think it's always about research, but if research is your thing, definitely get involved in research, because we were also both involved with research. And the research we chose, the reason why I was in the baby lab was because I love volunteering, as I mentioned, and many of my volunteer hours came from tutoring grade 3 to grade 5 students math and English, as well as I was a lifeguard, so teaching children how to swim. So that's why I joined the Baby Lab, just because I love working with children. And then Natasha joined the Senior Citizen Lab because we both had started a program when we were in high school geared towards senior citizens. So it's not always about research, but in regards to entrepreneurship specifically, if you have a list of small businesses near you that you're interested in, and like you have exact reasons for why you're interested in it, and if it relates to something you want to do when you're older, definitely have a spreadsheet, as Allie mentioned, because it's something we both did. And it's right, like when you reached out, when you want to follow up with them, definitely do that. But just show you're interested in them, because they definitely will. If they don't respond back the first few times, I think give it 3 times max, and then I'd move on. But they're just really busy as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Allie, I just had a question. You mentioned that you got a research internship, right? So when did you start like reaching out? Like when did you start applying? Or if you want to
So I started emailing a bit earlier, especially because I wanted a remote position that wasn't like with the school, like McMaster. It wasn't in Hamilton. It was further away. So I started sending out emails like mid-November, I would say. Yeah. And I think that was a bit early, but this is good because a lot of professors hadn't planned out their summers yet. So there wasn't that many people. I think if you emailed a bit later, there would have been more professors who would have said, oh, I already have summer students. But since I reached out earlier on, there was more people who were willing to keep that space open for me.
All right. Amazing. I think we're done with the questions in the chat. Anybody have any more questions, put it down quickly. And in about 1 minute, I think I'll just be ending the meeting. But thank you all once again. Oops, I was on mute. So I think, Shine, I think we're good to end the meeting about now. Oh wait, we have one last question. I think we can answer that quickly. Oh wait, Alisha already answered that. Great. So I think we're okay to end the meeting right now. Again, attendees, if you have any further questions, I'm sure you can reach out to our panelists. But thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. YHSA, our entire team, we're so thankful. Be sure to be following us for future webinars like this one, future workshops, and thank you so much. Shaina, I think we're okay to end the meeting right now.
Thank you so much again for having us.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.